The law converts private human agreements into state-enforced obligations the moment they cross a specific legal threshold. A father promising his son a weekly allowance carries zero legal weight. If the father changes his mind, the system views this as a purely social arrangement beyond the court's jurisdiction. In a commercial exchange, the relationship changes. A supplier agreeing to deliver raw materials for capital creates legal consequences. If one side defaults, the state intervenes to enforce the deal. Under the Indian Contract Act, this process follows a strict internal logic. The initial stage merges a proposal with a positive response. The final stage converts that baseline understanding into a binding obligation through state backing. This rigid equation weaponizes the law to ensure human intent is carried out exactly as stated. Before the equation can even begin to formulate, it requires consensus ad idem, a perfect meeting of minds. Both parties must think the same thing at the same time. If person A offers to sell their specific vintage vehicle, but person B accepts while visualizing a completely different modern compact car, the foundation of the agreement is missing. Because the intent diverges, there is no shared understanding, and the state views the agreement as non-existent. Without a perfectly mirrored intent, the legal structure collapses before the law can be applied. Under the Indian Contract Act, the initial proposal is defined as a formal expression of willingness to contract, made with the intent of creating a legal obligation. This matrix separates active legal proposals from passive marketing. A display item invites negotiation, but carries no binding weight. A valid offer must be clearly communicated, unmistakable from an invitation, and it cannot use a party's silence as a forced method of acceptance. Section 2B requires that acceptance be absolute and unconditional. It must match the offer exactly and be communicated back through the designated mode. Moving from a passive invitation to absolute acceptance is the trigger that arms the contract's enforcement. This mechanical process raises a timing question. At what exact microsecond does an agreement become permanent? This timeline tracks communication. An offer is complete only when received. Acceptance creates an asymmetry. Against the proposer, it locks the second it enters transmission. Against the acceptor, the obligation remains pending until the message actually arrives. This transit time defines the window for revocation, the act of taking back an offer or acceptance. A promiser can only cancel their offer before the promisee posts their acceptance. Once that envelope is sent, the sender is legally bound. The promisee can revoke their acceptance as long as the revocation reaches the promiser before the original acceptance message does. Under Indian law, the timing of dispatch and receipt permanently seals the rights of both parties. Every agreement must survive 10 mandatory legal filters. These include exchanging lawful consideration, ensuring free consent, and verifying competent parties. The final stages demand absolute certainty, physical possibility, and proper legal formalities. Failing any single filter instantly disqualifies the document. Even perfect communication fails if the parties lack legal capacity or the agreement demands an illegal act. The judicial system only enforces agreements that are certain, physically possible, and technically compliant. An agreement that fails a filter enters a specific legal state based on its structural defect. This matrix classifies failures. The first category is invalid from the start. The second remains valid until a pressured party cancels it. The third begins properly but later becomes impossible to fulfill, while the fourth fails morely due to technical legal defects. These categories allow the legal system to diagnose the specific point of failure in any disputed agreement. The transition from a thought to a contract requires an offer to meet an absolute acceptance. Parties are then locked into this shared understanding by strict communication timelines. Every agreement must then clear the 10 filters of validity, proving it is lawful, possible, and made with free consent. Under the Indian Contract Act, a valid contract converts a shared understanding into a permanent legal reality, bound by specific rules of communication and validity.